in San Francisco, helping build the payroll system that pays all the drivers all over the world. And so it was at that job that I really got like quite familiar with like the international banking system. I was kind of working on a lot of international banking integrations to support paying drivers' income. And I came to see firsthand just kind of like how arcane that like old legacy technology is, and how inefficient it is. And so that, I guess, it primed me a little bit to dive into the crypto work that we're doing today. Still, for some time, I was for a long time, I was actually a crypto skeptic. I honestly heard of Bitcoin and Ethereum in like 2017, 2018 and such, but it did not make much sense to me why anyone would pay, say, $20 in fees to send $5 to a friend. Like that math just didn't make sense to me. And so it wasn't until I saw Solana, a friend had told me about Solana in early 2021, that I came to like grok crypto a bit more and dive in and get a bit more interested. And it was particularly Solana's very fast transactions and very low fees that kind of caught my attention, particularly from a payments perspective, because it is just a more efficient payments network than any existing legacy rails, whether it's cash or cards or wires or checks or anything. And it's decentralized and open source, which makes it very, very exciting for kind of a global payments use cases. So we, when I saw Solana, like the first thing that my mind went to is like, this thing is great for payments, and we should obviously build like a payroll system on top of it. Because I just spent the last 4 years or so building payroll systems at Uber. And so we set out to build this payroll system and solve this problem of kind of like international transfers. Almost as soon as we started doing that, we began running into like this more fundamental problem, which was how do we schedule transactions? Because you see, we wanted to schedule kind of a recurring token transfer, like someone's income, whether it was every week or even every day or every month, whatever the employer and employee had wanted to set up their payment schedule to be. And there wasn't a good solution for this, to schedule these token transfers. Basically, the only way that we could find was to spin up some service, some bot in AWS or Google Cloud, and program that server to submit transactions to the blockchain at regular intervals. And didn't particularly like that solution because it obviously compromised on decentralization, which to us seemed like kind of the whole point of building on blockchains in the first place, is that if we have this kind of off-chain scheduling system that the whole smart contract platform depends on, then we have this single point of failure, and the whole system breaks down as soon as that single bot goes down. It kind of creates like a choke point, so to speak. And so what we wanted was like some sort of on-chain timer service, and that didn't exist at the time. And we began noticing, just through talking with some friends of ours who were building in the space, that they additionally were running into similar types of automation challenges in the smart contracts that they were building. And we began to suspect that there might be some larger kind of general purpose solution here that was missing. And that was where we set out in when was that? August probably of 2021. And at the time, we called our system Kronos, and we've since renamed. But we submitted in the Riptide Hackathon, and while we were at Mountain Dow, and ended up kind of by surprise winning first place in the Riptide Hackathon. And then from there, we're kind of like off to the races and realized that we should dive into this project full time. And so we raised a small seed round and have kind of been on this since. We've obviously since renamed to Clockwork. So to dive into it, really, Clockwork is an automation engine for Solana. And what this means is that if you're a developer, you can use Clockwork to schedule transactions and build automated event-driven smart contracts without having to spin up any sort of off-chain infrastructure or like pay for servers in AWS or Google Cloud. You can simply write your smart contract, and in that smart contract, you can define rules for how you want it to run, basically. And the Clockwork network, which is this distributed network of Solana RPCs and validators, will take care of submitting transactions to the chain on your program's behalf. So that in sort of a gist is what Clockwork is. And so diving into peeling under the hood a little bit, the core primitive that Clockwork provides for developers to do all this is something we call threads. They're essentially an automation API for Solana. And if you're a computer engineer, you likely are already familiar with threads. This is a term we kind of borrow from traditional computer science, in that traditionally a thread describes a series of instructions to execute on a traditional computer. And applications will use threads to execute this dynamic series of instructions on a computer. And so the analogy here is that smart contracts can use Clockwork threads to execute a dynamic series of instructions on Solana. You simply spin up a thread. You can define your trigger condition for when you want your thread to run, and then you define the set of instructions that you actually want to be executed, and Clockwork will take care of executing those automatically. And so to dive into it a little bit, I have kind of a sort of abbreviated, simplified code sample here to describe how the dynamic threads work, or dynamic instructions. So Clockwork supports both automating a static set of instructions, like if you know ahead of time exactly what instructions you want to run, you can tell Clockwork that set of instructions is basically you just pass along a vector of instructions that you want to run, similar to how you build your transactions today. But we additionally support dynamic instructions, which is very useful for a lot of kind of more complicated use cases where you don't necessarily know ahead of time, what the inputs to your instruction are going to be. For example, if you want to execute a trade on a DEX, there might be some input to that trade, like a price that you can't predict ahead of time. You kind of have to look it up on chain and then build your instruction that way. And so we, in looking at, in order to support this, we were kind of looking really deeply at the programming primitives that Solana provides and that Anchor provides. And we noticed this kind of funny thing where every instruction returns an empty result. And we define our instructions, we define our state, and we just kind of return okay at the end. But we realized that Solana is actually a bit more powerful than this, and you can actually return data from your instructions. And so we decided to leverage this to implement the dynamic instructions feature. And so what we ended up doing was defining this type that we call the thread response, where if Clockwork, say, can call one of your instructions, then you return a thread response that itself builds a new instruction, run. And you can point to some program that you want to automate. And this way, you can use Clockwork to kind of build chains of instructions together, where one instruction points to another, points to another, points to another. And so you can get these like long-running dynamic programs that do really complex things. I believe in the Sandstorm hackathon earlier, what year is it, 2023? I guess it was just earlier this year. One developer, Nader, he's now at Solana Foundation, but he built a program to calculate pi on-chain using this primitive. So it's kind of this like infinite long-running chain of instructions using these Clockwork thread responses. It's kind of continually calculating pi out to millions and millions of digits, and then saving that result into an on-chain account. As is kind of like, not a super practical example, but kind of demonstrates the type of computation that like is unlocked when you're able to kind of build these dynamic long-running programs. And so we thought that was kind of really cool. But the gist here, kind of to step back from like the technical details for a little bit, the high-level concept or big idea is just that Clockwork threads help bring your smart contracts to life, and you can use them to build smart contracts that just run on their own. So they don't require any sort of off-chain servers or infrastructure to actually, do their work. The smart contract itself is just a program that you can kind of deploy and just, runs potentially forever. And this, we believe helped get Solana at least one step closer to that ideal vision of being a world computer in a way where we can just kind of deploy programs and that utilize shared state. So that's in gist is what the Clockwork is. Now you may be thinking about how do these threads know when to run? And for that we have trigger conditions. So just kind of reiterating, like every thread has two main pieces to it. There's the trigger condition that defines when the thread can run, and then there's the actual instructions, either static or dynamic, that are actually executed. And so when these slides were created, we had 3 trigger types. We now have, I believe, 7. So we're kind of constantly adding new trigger types. And at the time we had account triggers, so you can watch a particular account, and when the data in that account changes, you can then kick off some operation. So this is very useful if you want to monitor some particular piece of state, kind of like an if this then that engine. Monitor a particular piece of state. When that changes, then we actually want to do some operation over here in our program. And you can monitor other program state as well. Like it doesn't have to be own accounts. You could monitor like an open book, open order account, or a Solend a lending pool. You can monitor other programs and then trigger your own automations based off of the data that's changing in those programs. Second main trigger type we offer is called cron, and so this is where the whole project kind of started, which is you can define just a simple cron schedule of the formats like 5, 0, star to run like on the 5th second of the first minute of every hour or so. And you can get kind of arbitrarily complex with those cron schedules. So if it's like some recurring like monthly schedule or weekly schedule, or like every second Tuesday of the month or something, you can define those types of schedules with a cron string, and have your thread automate any sort of automations that you want to run according to that. Third trigger type we have there is what on-demand trigger, which simply means I want this set of instructions. I want this thread to begin executing immediately. And this is often useful for if you have some kind of like dynamic chain of activity that doesn't fit into a single transaction. You can set up a thread and fired it off right away, and Clockwork will take care of like submitting those sequential transactions on your behalf. Since this slide was created, a little bit dated, we have 4 additional triggers. One is for slot-based scheduling. So if you want to run some transaction or instruction based on a slot number,
Hôm nay
you can
cũng
do
làm workshop
that. We have
3
an
người tham dự.
epoch-based trigger. So if you want to fire something, say anytime the epoch changes,
Còn bên đấy khi
you
nói
can
chuyện
schedule it
giá
that
thì ai
way.
cũng quan tâm nói chuyện kỹ
We
thuật
have
là bị kẻ
a timestamp
anh
trigger,
không muốn sống trong cái
which is kind of a simplified
không
version of
muốn
the cron,
tiếp tục
where you just
đau
specify a
khổ
Unix
anh phải tìm chỗ
timestamp.
nào mà anh ngồi nghe được không?
And your thread will fire whenever that Unix timestamp has, become the current time. And then the most recent trigger that we rolled out literally last week is a pith trigger. So a pith specific trigger that's where you can monitor a price feed on pith, and you can set a limit price and an equality operator. So if that price feed goes either greater than your limit price or below that limit price, you can then set up your automations that way. And so that forms the set of 7 triggers that we currently support. And we have new ones kind of coming all the time. I think the one that we'll probably do next is like some sort of SOL balance trigger, like monitoring a particular account for SOL balance changes, or even token balance changes. We're open to any and all feedback. So if you have ideas for program trigger types that you want to support, feel free to reach out and let us know, and we can get those implemented rather quickly. So I want to get, we've talked a bit about what Clockwork is and went into the technical details a little bit, and I want to get a little concrete, I guess, about what you can do with this. So one thing you could do is, going back to those account triggers, you could use an account trigger to monitor some incoming Oracle feed. And then your trigger, your thread will fire anytime that Oracle data changes. And then based on that, you can calculate on-chain any sort of derivative statistics that you want, whether it's like a moving average or some volatility index, or some kind of standard deviation. You can calculate that data on-chain and then use it in your smart contracts. And so in that way, we kind of, some people have described Clockwork as you can kind of create Oracle L2s in a way, like operations on top of Oracle feeds that the Oracle itself doesn't kind of provide natively out of the box. So this is one use case that users can implement. This naturally kind of brings us to DeFi. So there are a number of different DeFi automations that people can build, and some have been built. One, for example, is just auto repaying debt on Solend or Jet protocol when collateral prices approach a liquidation level. And in this way, you can build DeFi protection mechanisms. So if you have some outstanding debt on Solend, and you want to avoid being liquidated, you could set up a Clockwork automation that basically is monitoring your account and will repay that debt to avoid that liquidation, before it happens. That's one kind of DeFi integration. You can do on-chain trading bots. So with that pith trigger, for example, we've seen a project by an Anon developer. I don't know who they are, but they're building a grid trading bot on the Phoenix DEX, which is the DEX by Ellipsis Labs and Jerry. He used to work at Solana Labs. And so we're quite excited about kind of these like on-chain AMM protocols. Where it's basically a smart contract is providing the automated market making. And in this case, automated by Clockwork. And similar to that, like you could additionally get kind of aggressive in your DeFi operations and like automatically rebalance collateral positions based on relative yield rates. So like let's say USDC pool on Solend is yielding more than the USDT rate, you can kind of set up a smart contract to auto move those funds between those pools. Like one kind of use case that you might want to build out. But just more kind of examples of like things that we've seen people work on and build or going to payments. Going back around to like where the whole thing started is just automating token transfers. So there, for whether it's subscriptions or payroll or what have you, a lot of the economy's kind of monetary flows, cash flows are just automated transfers that happen on some periodic basis. And so there's like a few different ways to do this, obviously, based on whatever the situation is, if it's like payroll or subscriptions or like debt repayments. These are all a little, can be implemented into smart contracts and customized to whatever your particular needs are. And this additionally works for minting tokens as well. So one integration that wasn't live at the time, but now when we made these slides, but now is Helium. So Helium is, I think most people on Solana are probably familiar by now, is this decentralized wireless network. And they, in their migration to Solana, they decided to integrate with Clockwork. And currently Clockwork supports the Helium network by minting the new rewards tokens every day. So basically every 24 hours, the Helium network kind of enters a new Helium epoch, and Clockwork kicks off that epoch and mints and distributes the HNT rewards to all the hotspot operators. So this is kind of like one, additional kind of thing you could do with Clockwork. Finally, of course, like if you could do these things via multi-sigs as well. So if for whatever reason you want to secure your automation via multi-sig, you can obviously call out to the Clockwork contract via a squad's multi-sig contract. And this might be useful for, say, like automatically claiming yield from a validator or such, or from like stake pool, if you have a multi-sig securing that pool. So those are just some like quick run through of like various things we've seen people build or ideas that we've kind of had like talking with the community. I want to talk about like fees a little bit, and the fee for Clockwork is a very small, just kind of marginal fee that is tacked on to the transactions. So we charge 1,000 lamp ports per instruction. This is the base fee. And this is quite small. So if you're a developer, you might be familiar that every transaction on Solana charges 5,000 lamp ports to basically verify the signature on that transaction. So the Clockwork fee is basically, we view it as like an automation fee that is just tacked on top of that 5,000 lamp ports. And so if you just need to automate a single instruction, you're paying 6,000 lamp ports per transaction. If your automation includes 3 instructions, you're paying 8,000 lamp ports per transaction. And this fee gets paid out to the Clockwork node operators as incentive. So node operators just need some sort of financial incentive to actually run their node. And in most cases, these Clockwork workers are existing node operators. Like they already run validators and RPC nodes. And so this just kind of gives them an extra revenue stream for that, they can squeeze a little more work out of their nodes, like use a little more CPU and memory usage, and in return, they get compensated by the automation fees. And so if you are a node operator on Solana, and you're interested in running a Clockwork worker, please reach out to us. We're happy to help you set that up and get started with that. But yeah, final slide here is just that all this stuff is live on mainnet today and is 100% open source. So yeah, if you want to check out the GitHub, it's just github.com/clockwork-xyz. And I realized at the time these slides were created, we were currently under audit. The audit has since been released. And so you can read through that. We have it published to the GitHub. And yeah, we have a whole library of example programs that maybe I can show here. If you're interested in diving into example integrations, we have this repo at Clockwork XYZ examples, and we're kind of constantly adding to this library. We have a Hello Clockwork example of just first very simple automation. There's a counter program where you build a simple contract that maintains some state and then just auto increments a counter every 10 seconds. There's minting and distributing new tokens. There's an Orca, Whirlpool, DCA program showing how to subscribe to a Pith feed, for example, as well as some basic kind of subscriptions examples and others. And we additionally have kind of a growing knowledge base of docs at docs.clockwork.xyz. So if you're curious to learn more and dive into the details, there are a number of pages here that kind of describe the basic structure of the threads from a developer's perspective, how the address is calculated, the way the fees work, payers, etc., and then some guides to kind of correspond to those example programs. So if you're really looking for a step-by-step guide of how to get started, this is probably where you want to start. And so with that, I think we have about 20 minutes or so down to answer any questions or kind of dive into whatever folks want to talk about. I'm not sure which format.
Yeah, I think I have a question for you because I'm building a program that we want to let people to vote on chain and then trigger some certain actions. So my question is that I think I can utilize Clockwork to keep track of my PDA and then trigger some action. But some of the action I want to do is Web2 action. Is that possible to do it on Clockwork? For example, I want to use some a vote, and then when the vote result is out, the system will tweet something. Can I use that logic in Clockwork, and how can I do it?
Yeah, we're getting there. So at the moment, all of the automations are on-chain transactions. These are kind of easiest to secure. For off-chain actions, we currently don't support this today, but we have some features we've been working on that we call webhooks that are basically a way to trigger an action from on-chain and then have something happen off-chain. Main challenge with this, and it's kind of a big challenge, security challenge, is actually securing that key, API key, that's secret. So it's very difficult for a Twitter account, you have a particular API key secret that authorizes anyone with that key to post to your Twitter account. It's very difficult to have a distributed network. To use that key without like revealing it to everyone. So we have some solutions for this. Like for example, you basically have to introduce centralization somewhere to the system to secure that API key. And so what we're working on, one of the things we're working on is webhooks and a relayer can secure those API key secrets. And so we'll be able to route a webhook request from on-chain through your relayer, inject your API key secret, and then you can say ping Twitter or GitHub or Slack or whatever sort of off-chain system that you want to automate. Those relayers and webhooks are not live on mainnet today, but we have some demos in the code base that show the basic structure. You can actually, here I can kind of point out where in the code base they exist. There's this webhook program that defines the basic kind of model for say describing your URL that you want to hit, the HTTP method that you want to hit, the HTTP headers that you want to include, etc. The body of your HTTP request, and then you have to define a relayer, and the relayer in this case is like an off-chain server here that can inject your secrets into the HTTP request. So in this case, like your Twitter API key. And we have this demo kind of working, like there's a little bit to do to make it more production ready. But yeah, if you're really interested in using this, let's definitely set up some time to chat because I would love to push this out into production. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm really interested in like human decision on chain, because like a lot of use case we are doing involved in voting, and you see that all the voting on blockchain right now they do snapshot, and like even if we don't do snapshot, and then we have to let people to lock the token like or freeze it over time of the voting process. But I see the potential with Clockwork. Whenever people one vote in a proposal, then we can follow that account, and if that people transfer the token, then maybe we remove the power, but the voting power of that person. I think that's a very cool thing. We can think of possibly using Clockwork for that.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think there's like, just as part of like blockchains reaching mass adoption and being usable by the general public, I think it's super important that blockchains and off-chain systems like integrate well together. And in this case, like we have these really great controls like voting mechanisms and multi-sigs and such that give us a lot of great control over on-chain digital assets. But it would be really cool if we can kind of extend that power out to like off-chain systems as well, like a Twitter account. And so, yeah, with this relayer and webhooks, it should be able to do that, such that like you could draft a tweet on chain, vote on it, and if the vote passes, then submit the webhook out to Twitter and actually get the tweet sent. Yeah, we're super excited for this. I think there's like a lot of potential there, and we should definitely find some time to chat more. Because I'd be curious to understand more about like the program you guys are building.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Nick. Can you give some any ideas for developer can build something, some cool application based on Clockwork SDK?
Yeah, some ideas to build?
Yes.
Yeah. Sure. How much time do you have?
Yeah.
Let's see. I guess riffing on the like on-chain, off-chain thing for a little bit. it would be really cool. And there's been like a few kind of ideas, people that have proposed this, to basically get like, this is like a DeFi idea, to get U.S. Treasury bills on chain, way. And so U.S. Treasury bills are the way that like the Federal Reserve kind of manages interest rates and such, and are kind of the primary like interest mechanism that like drives the U.S. economy. But right now, DeFi obviously like doesn't, because like the on-chain systems and off-chain systems are so separate. They DeFi doesn't have access to that source of interest. And so it'd be really cool if like we had on-chain tokenized treasury bills, for example. And I think we would need some sort of like Clockwork relayer like this to support this, because the actual treasury bills themselves, they exist in this off-chain system that's like managed by the Federal Reserve, but we could tokenize those assets, and so you'd need some sort of like intermediary party that's be a company that everyone would need to trust, but they would be able to provide a tokenized version of that treasury bill that could then be traded and used throughout the DeFi ecosystem, and be a relatively reliable source of interest. That would then ideally bring a lot of liquidity to the DeFi ecosystems. So tokenized treasury bills is like one idea. If you guys are working on that, like I would love to chat. That's a huge idea. It's complications, but I think is desperately needed in DeFi today. Let's see.
Yeah, and how about something like game or social? Anything we can build with this kind of customer application with Clockwork?
Yeah. I'm not a social developer. I don't have any insights into like what the key kind of like social like all these social applications, whether it's Facebook or Twitter or something, that there's like some insight that kind of like gets people to use it. I don't have the secret to cracking social on chain, but something we have seen from a few different social programs is just simply clearing up old posts. So like on-chain rent, for example, is quite expensive. If you're saving posts like tweets in accounts on chain, that rent like really adds up over time. And so something you can do, and that we've helped Protocol do, is you just spin up a thread with each post and close the account after, say, 7 days or 2 weeks or a month or whatever the retention period is. You can do like on-chain messaging in that sense, but really there's a retention period on the messages, and you can close them out automatically after like 30 days or so. And so I don't know, maybe there's like some element to like temporary conversations that like crypto can do really well, but Clockwork can help in that sense. Like if you have, and that applies not just to social programs, but like any program. If you have accounts that you want to, clear up the rent for, or like garbage collect on your rent, for example, you can do that with a pretty simple thread.
Yeah, cool. Yes, because I asked a question because we are running a consumer hackathon in Vietnam. So yeah, we want to have some ideas for developer can build the customer app with Clockwork. Yeah, and thank you for your some cool ideas. We can brainstorming process.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Absolutely.
Let's see if we have any question.
The other thing that I think is like really big will be games. Like I'm super excited for kind of on-chain gaming. I can share like Jonas.
I see a guy's payment map, right? He built an SDK for strategic gaming with Clockwork, right? I see in Sandstorm Hackathon.
Yeah, there was Dev. who, not sure where he's at now, but he used to work at Jump.
Yeah.
And he had built a game, called Dominaria, which is like an on-chain strategy game, real-time strategy. And he used Clockwork to basically calculate scores for like various board positions. And Jonas, I just posted a Twitch stream. He's live right now, actually, doing like a live coding session of building a game with Clockwork, where they're basically like automating piece movements on chain. And you could additionally build like idle games, for example. So idle games like Clash of Clans, where you say like build a structure and it takes like 4 hours for the structure to build or something, or whether it's like harvest your crops, or you're waiting for those crops to grow back. Idle gaming on chain and like idle gaming economies could be really, really interesting. Something that Clockwork would make very simple to turn into a smart contract.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, I hope to see the demo, the live coding, soon. Yeah, cool. So yeah, I think some okay, cool. So if no one have any question, we can end the workshop here, and we will post the recording in the Smoothie Vietnam YouTube channel, and we will share it Twitter, and you can retweet and share with community. Yeah, cool.
Sweet.
Thank you, Nick, for joining with us today and sharing about a cool thing we can build with Clockwork.
Last thing I'll I guess just kind of share is like if you want to learn more, you can always visit. All these links are available from our website at clockwork.xyz. If you have any questions specific to development or product ideas, or just want to chat or anything, we have a community in Discord. And so please just kind of hop in, and you can throw questions our way, and we can help debug and build products. And thanks for having me on. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Cool.
Thank-